Hey guys, what's up? So I want to show you how I start the mixing process for a mix and master client. I have a specific way I do this, and I'm in Logic Pro right now. Sometimes I mix in Pro Tools if I'm giving a Pro Tools session, but there's reasons why I mix in Logic Pro. At the end of the day, the sound quality will be the same between any DAW. It's all about the plugins you use, your workflow, and just what you're comfortable with. So I imported some stems for a client named Mikey Garlando, and he is a UK rapper and a very good client of mine and a great, great guy. This is one of his tracks called Philly Arcs. And here's how I throw everything together. So I have a key command in Logic which creates summing buses. So for me, that's Command G. So what I'll do is I'll start looking for tracks that are similar. For instance, I will highlight the vocal tracks and then go Command G and name this vocal group. I'll go to the next set of stems that are similar. Like we have, okay, let's see. We have crashes. So I call those symbols, all right? So I'm going to group the crashes, or just, actually in this case, I'll just call them crashes. Crashes, GRP. On to the next group. Slide them up next to each other. Let's go to the guitars. There's 5 guitar tracks. Actually, there's more than that. There's some guitars down here too. So I'll grab those, bring them up next to these guitars right here on the left. You can see all these are guitar tracks. Highlight them, Command G, and we're going to call that guitar group. This is fast organization. Every time I create one of these stacks, it already routes to its own bus. So these guys are all going into their own bus. I can affect them per each group. So I have a drum group here. Well, one of the files he called drum group. I'll add the fill to that. I'll add the hat to that. I'll add this kick right here, bring that up, and then we'll now create a drum group. This is how I fly through mixes. Horns, same deal. Do the same thing. Horns, group. Okay, let me see what else. Piano, Rhodes, we're going to call that keys, group. Now, we have a few things. I'm not sure what they are just yet. It looks like this might be a blank track, or the audio is so low on it that there's nothing there. I see vocals. So we have Vox all the way down here. These are all vocals. For now, they're all going into the same group. I say for now because sometimes once I'm mixing the vocals, I decide to separate the backgrounds from the lead vocals into 2 different groups, depending on how they sound. If it doesn't make sense to keep them in one group and I need to do them slightly different, then they go into their own group. All right, what is bell? Oh, it's literally a bell. All right, so I can go back to the beginning here. What I'm going to do is slide everything over to the first downbeat of the session. I'm going to give myself an extra count in. And now what I want to do is figure out what the tempo is of this track. All right, on my output in Logic, I'm going to go down to something under metering, go to something called the BPM counter. And I am going to play this track now. All right, it says 90, so I'm going to change my session tempo to 90. And I'm going to see if my metronome matches up to the beat. Good. It matches up. And if you don't have a BPM counter like that, there's apps for your phone. So you could tap along with the beat as it's playing. Tap, 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 tap. And then just input the session tempo right up here. So this is how I start my mixes. This is the first line of defense. So once you have that going, you can begin by adding things to these groups. So for instance, I have a drum group. And what I like to do is I like to start out with something simple like a Wave CLA 2A which usually glues everything together very nicely for me. I try not to hit EQs right away. I try to see what things sound like when they are slightly compressed, and then I try to sit everything in the mix to see how it feels. Then I'll start doing EQ for correcting issues. See that? I go to my vocal group, and I actually have a pre-made channel strip. It's called the Sheps Omni plus CLA. So I've plus CLA vocal, which I use a lot, that combination. So I created a channel strip preset for myself, so I could just open that up. So I'll throw that on the vocals now. There we go. All right. So it loaded up my channel strip, which is a combo of the Sheps Omni Channel 2 and CLA vocals. Those are what I start with. Those are my go-tos. I can manipulate them to make everything sound perfect. And then if I need to do anything extra, I will. So let's go. All right, so now what I need to do is go and balance out these vocals. So verse backing left, verse backing right. I need to see where the main verses are, because I don't see them here, which means that I may have not imported them. Ah, you know what? I put it into a different, I must have put it into a different, I must have put the vocal into a different group. Let me see. I must have like missed one here. Oh, I have this other vocal group down here. So I did two vocal groups. Didn't even realize I did that. Okay, let's get these out of here and put them all up here. All right. I don't know how I ended up doing that. It's early over here. I'm just getting my day started. Sometimes I do silly things. So let's put this up here. And now we have all the vocals in one group. I can delete this other group, and that's fine. The fuck, the inner genie gives teachers more success, and it's me full of stress because they get no sex. 44. All right. Another thing I like to do is I like to go right to my stereo output and add my mastering chain right away from the start. We call this top-down mixing. It helps to glue things together, so I get to do less on the mix. Believe it or not, once you get the mastering kind of set in a general range of how you want everything to feel glued, you'll do a lot less to the actual components of the mix. That's my way of mixing. Not everybody likes that. People like to do the mix and then throw the mastering on later. I like to get in there and start out with something on there. For the Twitter, but it's worth much less. What a bit of medicine Elon Musk is pressed. Is this bitch first, Zuckerberg is next. Fuck it. So this is basically how I start my mixes, and the mix won't take me very long once I've done this setup, because organization is literally everything. So I hope you guys like this video. Stay tuned for the next one where I go a little bit more in depth with the mix.